Good morning, everyone. Um, Before Anne introduces Reverend Rendo, I'll just read a brief statement on Donna and remind everyone that this talk is being recorded and will be up on Great Trees and Women's Temple YouTube page. In Buddhism, when practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. Those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. And we will put in the chat the donation page to Great Tree. Thank you.
This morning's talk by Reverend Rendo Jonathan Flom is titled Taking Care of the Moment, a Milkman's Story. And milkmanning seems to be, I think, part of Rendo's family history, actually. I got the story right. Rendo is a Soto Zen monk who ordained at Great Tree Zen Temple in the spring of 2011. He was ordained by Tejo Munich. Rendo has been married for 25 years and has 2 teenagers. He's a writer and spent a good chunk of time as a milkman. His business, distributing dairy products of the Amish in North Carolina, operates out of Asheville and Charlotte. During the pandemic, he converted his kids' old playhouse into a tiny temple. You can learn more about this project and other oddities at his website, www.ashevilletinytemple.org. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Trey, and for doing this. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Really deep appreciation. First, I just want to mention, remind everybody, you might know from looking at the last newsletter, that next month we'll be celebrating Tejo being a monk for 40 years. She ordained on June 27th, 1981, which is great for all of us. We've all benefited. I've benefited. So I just want to dedicate the talk today to those 40 years and to say if you give any dana, please just give it directly to Tejo, not just to Great Tree, but directly to Tejo as just thanks for the 40 years. I really love being a milkman. And like Anne said, I have this website where I've been collecting all my writings lately for the last year or so. And I've been writing a lot. And on there, I actually have a little book I put together called Milkman's Dharma. But the story I'm going to tell you today isn't in that book because it's almost too important of a story to write down. As a writer, there's certain things, at least for me as a writer, that I don't even want to commit to the page. I just want to hold it, and just keep it, just like it is, without having to possibly objectify it in any way. But I'm going to share the story with you today, shortly, because we're all students of the way. And this story, this experience really helped me find my way. And I know that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find our way. You know, beyond selfishness, beyond the distinctions of self and other. We're trying, and this really helped me do that. But first, I want to talk about what led me to be a milkman and what my intention was in becoming a milkman, and why I think this story was allowed to happen for me. When I ordained, I should say after I ordained, when I ordained, I really felt elated. I was so happy to ordain. I really wanted to ordain. And then when the ceremony was over, I remember feeling just elated. And then as time passed, I realized that I still had a wife and still had young children that I had to support. And I couldn't just go off to a monastery and practice all the time. And at the time when I was getting ready to ordain, I was doing work in the business world, in the corporate world, as kind of a consultant, as a writer, using my writing talent in that way, being a speech writer, being a ghostwriter of speeches and books, etc. And also often being a trainer, helping people to give speeches, helping them relax, helping them kind of feel authentic and fearless in front of a group. And I thought it was good work. And I had been doing that for more than 10 years. But what I started to notice were, even though my intention was to give people something authentic and true, often the purposes it was used for, sometimes I didn't agree with. But that was kind of in the back of my mind. But I had kids and I was sort of dealing with it. But once I ordained, it was like, once those vows are made, it's not like a conscious thing. Oh, conscious, I can't do that anymore. It wasn't conscious, but it was just like, I can't do that anymore. You can't. I couldn't water down the Dharma, and I couldn't use the Dharma for something that isn't pure. That's what came over me. So that was a great crisis for me and for my family, because we still had to make a living. And I really didn't know what to do. Lee remembers this. And I was just sort of floating around there with a lot of fear. What will I do? And with the last little money that we had, once I left all that work behind, I took a cross-country trip with a family. I thought maybe we'd come up with something, discover something. And then that's where the idea came up, and it seemed to be random at the time, but eventually I realized it wasn't random, to be a milkman. And the idea was that somehow I can take what I knew about Dogen, and I could apply it. And I can take what I knew about Zen, the little I knew about cooking and cleaning and taking care of details and taking care of people, and just throwing myself into physical work. That felt right. And milk felt right. Milk felt pure. And so when I decided to be a milkman, I didn't even know the dairy I was going to work with. And in fact, when I met this Amish family, this amazing group, this hidden community, they don't want anyone to know they're there. They're in North Carolina. These 50 families moved down from Pennsylvania. They don't want anyone to know they're there. somehow, in some weird way, I got introduced to this family when I wanted to start this business, and they simultaneously wanted to start bottling their own milk and selling it, because they weren't getting any money selling it to the co-op, or, those big milk trucks. And we got together, and he said, "Look, if you do this, you can. I don't want you to talk about the fact that this milk is good because we're Amish. If you talk about this milk, I want you to learn everything about the farm. I want you to be out here. I want you to learn about the soil, why we do what we do. I don't want this to be like a fetish thing that we're Amish. I want to be like what the soil is and how we treat our cows." And I was like, "All right, yeah." And I never want you to negotiate on price. I don't want people to buy our milk because it's the cheapest. I want people to buy it because it's the best. So when I met him, I was like, yeah, I've met my guy, and the milk business just got going, and I felt I was able to throw my full effort into it, and it was my way when I couldn't be in a monastery or practicing regularly at Great Tree like I might have wanted to use my enthusiasm from ordination to throw myself into being a milkman. And that was what I did. And so what I really came to love about being a milkman was the ordinariness. I loved the milk bottles. I loved the crates. I loved everything being full at the beginning of the week in the warehouse. I loved it being empty. I like getting the glass bottles back clean, bringing them back for return, getting them filled, doing the same thing every day, cleaning the warehouse a certain way, cleaning the truck a certain way, greeting people a certain way, always organizing the milk so people were using it from the right date first, and so there was no waste, um, and that made me feel really refreshed, pardon the pun, and really invigorated. Uh, and so I love the ordinariness, but yet the story I'm going to tell you today is a miracle. And what I believe now is that miracles and ordinariness are the same thing. And I want to read you this from a little quick thing from Shobogenzo, of the fascicle on miracles. And it says, thoroughly investigate the meaning of these words. Fetching water means drawing and carrying water. Sometimes you do it yourself, and sometimes you have others do it. Those who practice this are all miracle Buddhas. Although miracles are noticed once in a while, miracles are miracles. It is not that things perish or are eliminated when they are unnoticed. Things are just as they are, even when unnoticed. Even when people do not know that fetching water is a miracle, fetching water is undeniably a miracle. Carrying firewood means doing the labor of hauling, as in the time of Wenang, the sixth ancestor. Even if you do not know that miracles happen 3,000 times in the morning and 800 times in the evening, miracles are actualized. Those who see and hear the wondrous activities of miracles by Buddha Tathagatas do not fail to attain the way. Attaining the way of all Buddhas is always completed by the power of miracles. Causing water to spout out of the head is a practice of the lesser vehicles. It is merely a minor miracle. On the other hand, Fetching water is a great miracle. The custom of fetching water and carrying firewood has not declined, as people have not ignored it. It has come down from ancient times to today, and it has been transmitted from there to here. Thus, miracles have not declined, even for a moment. Such are great miracles, which are no small matter. So I always felt when I was delivering milk, it was as joyous as a miracle to wake up in the morning with the sun rising and loading the milk truck and knowing I had 35 stops, especially on the restaurant days when I was going to see people who I knew and who I came to enjoy. I worked with someone in the truck who I enjoyed so much, who was really, I had some really kind employees working with me, some really beautiful people who really gave a lot of heart. And everything was in the moment because we were always in motion. I was in this vehicle and I was visiting everyone else's home, everyone else's shop, everyone else's store, and they let us in. We went in the back door and did our thing, and it was beautiful. And I noticed everything because that was my job as a milkman to notice things. And sometimes I noticed things in their walk-in cooler that they didn't notice about food going bad or other things, not just the milk, because I was looking so much at the milk, but I was able to see everything. So I communicated that, and people really appreciated that. And over time, they noticed that I was noticing their milk and noticing other things. And they realized that, oh, they were also being noticed. And after a while, it seemed to be part of the job that when I came, people wanted to be noticed and tell me things, tell me special things about their lives. Just even it was just 5 minutes, just something they wanted to get off their chest. It was like they were waiting for me so they can say it. And then it was safe and they knew I was going to be on my way and it was gone. I can just take it and it didn't have to stick around in the restaurant. I can just take it on the milk vehicle and recycle it and keep going and let it go and be available at the next stop to take what somebody gave me. And what a wonderful practice. I just can't say enough about it. I mean, I loved it so much. I wish I could have just by the end, and that's why I had to stop. I just wanted to give the milk away for free. The only part I didn't like was the commerce of it. That it stressed me. It drove me crazy. I just wanted to give that milk away for free by the end. One of the things about noticing things is that you start noticing things. Nothing is hidden. So one of the things I started to notice at a particular coffee shop downtown, center of town, is I'd go in and there'd be the same person there who's a beautiful looking man, probably about 70 years old, looked kind of like a thin Tolstoy, and he wore a beret. And he was just elegant, beautiful. And he was an artist. He was always doing art. And when I walked in, I'm doing the milk, and he rarely looked up. He was so engaged in what he was doing. And eventually I just started, looking down and seeing what he was doing, what was going on. And he was making this intricate religious art. It was all this kind of Russian Orthodox icons, like things you would, and I mean, his artwork on the page, on a flat page, almost it was so detailed, it almost looked like a sculpture. And I just was watching him, and I'm watching his focus and his concentration. And finally, after a few weeks of just watching him, I said, "Wow, do you have anything for sale?" And I think whatever it is I had in my pocket, I said, I got $10 in my pocket right now. You got anything? He's like, I got something right here. And he gave me this, it was just this black and white thing. It was on this little piece of paper, this card, and it was a picture of an eye. It was just a human eye, but done in this kind of sculptural, abstract fascinating kind of way. He's like, here, that's yours, you know. I remember going home and I gave that eye to my son, who was equally enamored by it. And my son had just gotten a new leather journal and just took that eye and like pasted it right to it. And that became his journal, which I was really happy about. And things went on like that with this man named Michael. And I started buying artwork from him and talking to him. And, you know, then when I come, he started opening the door for me and wanted to help me with the milk. And we just, you know, just started developing a friendship. And, you know, I came to realize that Michael was homeless. And at one point I said, Michael, this is, I think, many months into it. Once I knew we sort of trusted each other and we were friends, I said, you know, and he told me he was homeless at that point and how he was kind of managing, how he came to the shop during the day as soon as they opened to make his art and sell art. And then he went and was sleeping next to a church at night. So he can have a little bit of overhang, a little bit of covering. And I said, well, what do you need right now? Like, what would be good besides like buying some artwork and stuff? What would be good? And, you know, he looked down at his feet and he had these flip-flops on, these kind of old flip-flops. And he said, you know, it's probably time. I could probably use a pair of shoes. And I felt really silly that I hadn't looked down and known that he really could use a pair of shoes. But once I noticed it, it was obvious. I'm like, yeah, well, it's going to, you know, be winter before too long. Let's get your pair of shoes. He says, yeah, I figure if I get them now, I can start to break them in. I haven't worn regular shoes in a long time, but if I like wear them for like an hour a day, I think my feet can get used to them, and then I can break them in. So by the time winter comes, I'll have these shoes. And I think it'd be better. I said, yeah. I said, how about socks? He said, yeah, socks would be good. So, you know, next time I saw him on the milk route, I brought him some shoes and socks. And he said, wow, these are new shoes. You bought these shoes. I said, yeah, of course. He said, you bought them new? I said, yeah. Oh, wow, okay. Well, thank you. I said, yeah. And I gave him a couple of pair of socks. He said, you got me 2 pair of socks? I said, yeah. He said, but I really only need 1 pair. I said, yeah, but you know, if you want to wash the other pair, you know, in the sink, then you can have that. And he said, yeah, that might not be bad. Two pair, you know. And he broke in the shoes, and he had the shoes, and it went on like that as it was getting colder, and maybe sweater. And then as it was getting colder, he said, you know, Jonathan, I was thinking where I'm sleeping now, you know, I'm having to get up real early. I'm getting up at 4:30 or 5. It's starting to get cold, so I'm starting to walk until the coffee shop opens because it's too cold to sleep. I was thinking maybe like a horse blanket, you know, like horse blankets are really warm. You see horses out there in the field and be good. I said, yeah, but you know, horse blankets, they don't zip up all the way. They have those straps, big open. I said, what about just like a really good sleeping bag? He's like, yeah, I can do that. Be good. I said, all right. So we got a sleeping bag. And it just kind of went on like that. Real casual. He wasn't worried about it. He wasn't worried about it. He had completely let go. However, whatever was going on for Michael, who was a deeply religious individual. And to me, he was a great teacher for me and continues to be. Just an amazing bodhisattva individual. He wasn't worried about it. He was focused on his art because in between, he'd ask me for different colors. And we talked about the brushes he was using. He knew exactly the kind of brushes he wanted and the kind of things he wanted to do. And the way he can make a little more money, if he can get just a bigger canvas, stop working off of discarded paper, if he can get a canvas. So I started, in the midst of other things, I was bringing him canvases and paints and brushes and all the guys who worked for me in the milk route started to know. And then this just became part of the milk route. Keep the milk cold and figure out how we're going to keep Michael warm. That was just another detail. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't really think about it. It was just another part of the job, because we were noticing the milk and noticing everyone else in the coffee shop. And Michael just became another kind of customer, another customer who happened to turn into a friend, like most customers did. And Michael just happened to be homeless and happened to be an amazing painter and teacher, you know. I mean, I would bring my daughter there to meet Michael just so she can watch him paint. When she was real small, she really loved to paint also, just so she can watch him. And I got to the point where it was getting towards winter, um, and I was getting more concerned about the wintertime. And I wanted to bring Michael home to the house to live with us. And my wife was said no. So I said okay. Um, so I asked Michael what he did when he gets real cold. You know, would he ever think about going to a shelter? He said, no, I can't go to a shelter because I really like my privacy. And every time I've gone to the shelter, my paints have got stolen, or things I had. He kept his things very neat. He traveled very much like a monk, you know, with his bag and how he had everything. Just so he said, people you go through my things, and I just can't have that. I just can't be in that space. I said, okay. I said, so what do you do if it gets just too cold to be outside? He said, well, once in a while, if I really have to, I'll get a motel room. And he told me the motel where he goes. So I just started buying him a motel room nights. And that winter we had a really cold winter, so I started buying him a lot of nights. And the people in the coffee shop where he stayed started to realize that I was picking him up and taking him to this motel, and I was buying a lot of nights. And then the coffee shop people were like, "Hey, Jonathan, what can we do? What can we help you? You know?" And I said, I think if we raise some money for the hotel room nights, that would help, because I'm kind of running out of money on it. I said, the girls, like, coffee shop young people, they know all about that stuff. She's like, yeah, we can do like a GoFundMe and raise some money and cover the motel for the wintertime. And so she set it up like in 30 minutes. We had a GoFundMe. Within an hour of having the GoFundMe set up, someone donated $1,000. One person. And it turns out the person, and I realized who the person was who donated $1,000. It was someone who had a food truck in town. And the person who had the food truck in town was once homeless themselves. And it wasn't like this person wasn't making a lot of money now on that food truck. I mean, I knew what the situation was. But they just donated $1,000. Before we knew it, we had enough money so everything can be helped. And that was good, because I felt I was able to sleep at night. Because when it was really cold and when it was rainy, once Michael became my friend, I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was worried. And then after a while, I said, Michael, this seems nice in the motel. He said, yeah, it's pretty good, not too cold. And then I get up and I walk, to the coffee shop, and I can do my art, and it's good. I like it. I said, good. I said, do you think you'd like an apartment, like a permanent place? He's like, yeah, I lived in a van for a long time and I liked that. And of course that van broke down, so it's why I'm doing this now. But he said, I'd like it. He said, I think it'd be good, but of course I can't afford it. But I think it'd be good. But if I had one, I don't think I wouldn't want a lot of stuff in there. I wouldn't want a TV. I wouldn't want a bed. I just want like a mattress on the floor. Maybe a radio. He said, maybe a radio. I'd want some plants in there. But I definitely want to get out every day. I wouldn't want to like get stuck in there. I said, yeah, you get stuck in there. Just be like this. Just a place to sleep, when it's cold and rainy and stuff. He's like, yeah. So I called in a favor from an old friend that I knew, and this is how things kind of connect back together. You know, I told you I was working as a speechwriter before and stuff, and I wanted to stop doing that to do the Milkman thing. But one of the things I did when I was a speechwriter locally is I volunteered one session of Asheville TEDx talks. People who were doing some good things in Asheville and were giving a speech, but they were nervous about it. So I volunteered to help them prep. And one of the people who was giving it was someone who worked for, she had done something really good and she worked for Mountain Housing Opportunities. And I remembered that years ago, I prepped her for her speech and how much she appreciated it. So I called her and I said, hey, I think I need a favor here. I hate to ask to put someone at the head of the line, but it's a real special guy and I'd like you to meet him. And I called her in the morning. She came out and met him that afternoon. She was right there. And she talked with Michael. She said, you think you'd like a place to live? And Michael said, yeah, it'd be okay. Again, no desperation, no I was so much more worried about Michael than Michael was worried about Michael. He wasn't worried. He was more worried about me. He said, Jonathan, you're working too hard. That was his thing. So there were a lot of hoops to jump through. And I had more people from the coffee shop saying, what can we do? So I just started saying, yeah, well, you can go help him get a social security card because we need that. And then we need proof of this. And, all these hoops to jump through to get in this, affordable housing place. And then we finally get the appointment. We get pushed up to the front of the line and Michael and I go. And the woman at the affordable housing place looks at, Michael has a little bit of social security coming in, a few $100s a month, as he was in the Navy way back when. And the woman looks at all this stuff, looks at the income, and she says, well, you're gonna sponsor him, right, Jonathan? You'll contribute $500 a month to him, and you'll sign that and guarantee that, and he's worked for you before and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there kind of like, well, and she's like, no, you're gonna sponsor him. And and he worked for you, and you can vouch for him, and you've known him for this many years. Blah, blah. And she's just coaching me on what white lies I have to say to make this happen. This is a woman who knew all the red tape, knew the ways around it, and said, we're gonna get this done. So Jonathan, you're gonna agree to this, you're gonna agree to that, you're gonna agree to that. And she was kind of a wink and a nod, like, you're not ever gonna have to do this stuff, but you're just gonna agree to it and put it on paper. So when I send it to Raleigh, it's gonna pass. Even though she didn't say it that way. But it was like she was just that she was following the precepts exactly like the precepts need to be followed, let's just say. And she just coached me along what to write. And I did. And, after a while, Michael got that apartment. And, he's been there 3 years, more than 3 years. And every year I come back in the beginning of January, because I'm his sponsor, and I write that I'm giving him this much money a month, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And guess what? I've never given him another dime till he's had that apartment, because he's paid for it with his artwork, and he's made it work, and he's thrived. And that woman said, this is a model tenant, And I don't see Michael much anymore, because we did what we needed to do for each other. It was just touch and go, and we were able to let go. I didn't want him to have the burden of gratitude, because after that, whenever he saw me, he's like, Jonathan, thank you. I didn't want him to have that. I want him to just feel free again, like he always felt. When it was interesting, when Michael finally got the apartment, it seemed like we were waiting forever. Once we even got to the front of the line, it was still months, and it was still winter. and our money was slowly but surely, getting almost down to the wire, almost where we ran out of the motel money that we had raised on the on the GoFundMe. We were just about to run out when he got the apartment. And I was so excited when he was getting close to getting the apartment. It was like I was excited like when I was being ordained. I was excited like that. That's how I was. And I really selfishly wanted to be there to see him walk into that apartment. We didn't know exactly the day it was going to happen. We thought it was going to happen this day, then it was delayed, then it was this, then it was this, and it was this, and it was that. And it so happened that when it happened, I'm in New York right now telling this story. When it happened, I happened to be on my way to New York. My father was sick. I hadn't seen him in quite a while, and I was on my way. And Michael was getting the apartment that day. And the girl who ran the coffee shop was going to go with him and get him checked in and everything. And she surprised me, and she made a video of him getting it. And she sent me a message, and the message said, I've sent you a video, Jonathan. Look, you have to watch it. And I knew kind of what the video was going to be. I had an idea. So I was driving, and I think I was driving in Virginia or something. So I pulled over somewhere, and I'm on my phone, and I watched it. And there was this one part, well, there are two parts of the video that I think of for and I'll always think of forever. And one part of it was it just had Michael's hand out and the key dropped into it, the key to the apartment. And I just saw his hand, and I saw him smile with the key, and him then he knew he was making the video for me. So he showed it to me. And then he opened the door, and he walked in there, and it's a nice apartment. It's right downtown. He can walk and everything. It was really nice. Wood floors, and there's light in his windows. And he walked in, and he just did this like turnaround thing, and this sort of little